when we like continue to get up and put the work in, like we're also giving a little bit back to every single person who's involved. And I think that's forgotten about a lot too. Like how many people overall we're affecting. I mean, especially with the limited partners, right? Because they have families and they have children, and who knows, like maybe they're trying to get their parents to retire earlier, like it can go in so many directions that knowing that we can create that little bit of difference is like what makes it all worth it. Because we strongly believe that like you're born to make an impact.
If you're watching this on YouTube, make sure you smash that like button and click subscribe. For those of you listening on a podcast platform, be sure to subscribe on whatever platform that is and leave us a rating if you can. The more likes, ratings, and subscriptions that we get, the more we can spread the message and grow our community. So we also have a free Facebook group. It's called the Average Joe Finances Network. Check us out, join the group, join the community, ask questions, and become a part of the team. All of our other social media accounts are listed in our flow page, and we have them in the video or podcast description below.
Hey, how's it going, everybody? So today we have our guests, Suzy Sevier and Michael Barnhart, and they are the founders of Adventurous Real Estate Investors. Their adventure began at a TEDx event, and the theme was reset, and it changed their lives. How did it change their lives? Well, they took the event to heart and use that theme as a launching point to regain control of their lives, secure financial freedom, give back to the community, and discover their why. They want to share this journey with others by helping others check off their bucket list items and achieve the greatest ROI, which they call return on impact. So, hey, Suzy and Michael, I'm super stoked to have you guys on the show today. Thanks for joining me.
Thanks, Mike. We're really excited to be here and provide value for your listeners.
Awesome. Fantastic. So I'm going to start this off the same way I start off every episode. And we want to know a little bit about, a little bit more about the two of you. So if you could just share a little bit about yourself, share your story. Like, how'd you get started? Where, besides, the TEDx event that we know that we talked about in the beginning, what got you guys to get to this point?
Yeah, absolutely. That's a great question. So, I mean, even just to bring it back a little, right, to the TEDx event. So like to expand on that, the theme was reset. And what that was like your way of resetting the things that you think about. So, I mean, they talked about religion, they talked about solitary confinement, about beatboxing, about tattoos. And it was just like little tweaks, right? Like, so if you thought about it this way, would it change your mind? And a lot of people from that event were like, absolutely. And so from there, it was just like having that in the back of our minds for everything that we were doing, right? And for your listeners, so Michael and I actually live in Cambridge, England, all the way in the UK. And so even that move and that transition in itself was like a big like reset moment. Like, what are we going to do when we're over here? How are we going to optimize, like take advantage of everything? And so like I'm a program manager for a biotech company over here. So even being able to work like for an overseas company has been like life-changing, right? Like meeting all the new people, all the new cultures, like all the little diversities. It's really, really cool. And I will let Michael actually explain why we are all the way over here. And then we can go into the whole real estate story.
Yeah. So I was, teaching at the Air Force Academy prior to coming here. And basically when I was teaching, they were like, hey, we want you to continue teaching. I'm still active duty military, by the way, in the Air Force. And so they wanted me to continue teaching. So they sent me to get a PhD. And luckily, I was able to obtain admission to the University of Cambridge. So I'm working on my PhD in biochemistry here. Once we're finished here, we'll head back to Colorado, where I'll continue teaching and basically finish out my military career there. So I'm at the tail end of my military career. I got like 7 years left and looking forward to it.
Yeah. And then just to transition like into our whole story. So when COVID started, and the lockdowns occurred, because over here, the first lockdown was a little over 100 days, and we didn't actually know how long it would last, right? Like a lot of people were sent home from work with the notion of, we don't know how long people will be at home. And Michael and I don't have a TV, just because that is a decision like that we have made due to the distractions that it can bring. And so Michael and I were like, okay, well, what are we going to do? And I said, let's do a mini book club with each other. And so that first book that we read was The Slight Edge by Jeff Olson. And what that book is about is being 1% better every day. So whatever that means to you, right? Like working out for 5 minutes longer, going on a walk, eating a little bit healthier, waking up 15 minutes earlier, whatever that may mean. But at the back of the book, there were book recommendations. And of course, like Michael and I, thinking about the 1% better, thinking about like the reset, we were like, okay, we're going to have to read some of these books. And so one of those books was Multiple Streams of Income by Robert Allen. And in that book, it talks about stocks and like more traditional ways of investing, or what people think is traditional. And then it gets into real estate investing. And Michael had just looked at me and he's like, we have got to do this. Like we shouldn't wait until I retire. We shouldn't wait until we get back. Like we should see if we can do this now. Right. And then that's just where we went straight into the podcast and the education and reading more books. And even when we started to listen to podcasts, so many people were saying, like, I wish I would have started in real estate investing sooner. And so that little, I guess, message, like all those people giving us permission, right? Like, do it, because that can be a limiting belief in itself. We were like, we have to, let's keep doing this. And so like, that's where it all started. It was, last April-ish, end of March, April, where the whole real estate journey began.
Wow, that's awesome. I mean, so it's funny that you said that. Every person that you talk to in the real estate space, or even every podcast that you listen to, everybody talks about how they wish they would have started sooner. And it's kind of cliche, but it goes along with that saying that the best time to start investing was 20 years ago. The second best time is today, right? Mm-hmm. And that's what you guys did. You read some books, you've got some information, you educated yourselves, and then you just took action and you made it happen. So it's really funny, because when we initially discussed having you guys come on the podcast, and I'm looking at everything that you guys were doing, I was like, this is super cool. And then come to find out, like we were talking about this before we started recording, like you just started this last year during COVID. And not only did you start during COVID, like you started the whole education piece, you started investing like right away. And I want to dive into that, because this is really exciting, because there's a lot of people that listen to my show right now that, that are they're still on that journey, getting themselves out of debt, and they're looking at, what's the next step? What do I do next? And, I've paid off my credit cards. I've paid off my loans. It's time to start putting my money to work. Right. So that's what you guys did. And not only that, you did it from overseas. So what's really interesting too is you're in the UK right now, but you're investing back in the States, right?
Yeah.
So
exactly.
can you share with us like the location? Where's your market at?
Yeah. So initially, like we got hooked on bigger pockets. So we thought that single family was the way to go, right? Because you hear so many people like go into single family, start into single family, and you can work your way up. So initially, like we had gone to a real estate conference that was virtual, because that's really what helped us like excel, is that everything went virtual. And at this real estate conference, it was held by Bill Allen. It was the Veterans REI. Like there was a variety of speakers that talked about BRRRRs, about fix and flips, multifamily, short-term rentals, the whole thing. And BRRRRs really resonated with us, but then multifamily did as well, right? Because with like the breakout rooms, Whitney Sewell, who is very big into multifamily, had just said like, you don't have to start with single family. You can go straight into multifamily. So that like planted a little seed, but we still decided to try the BRRRR route. And with that, we had set up a team and everything actually in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. And what that looked like is that we interviewed property managers, we interviewed realtors, we interviewed contractors, and we had 2 properties under contract, but then an inland hurricane went through, which was not part of our risk profile or anything, but it destroyed a lot of the city. Like 60% of the trees were out. People didn't have power for like 4, 5, 6 weeks, which is a really long time. And so we could not get the financing because contractors were out rebuilding the city. They didn't want to have to worry about fixing up the inside of our rental because the outside was perfectly fine, And so we were like, okay, totally understandable. Like, where do we go from here, right? Because we can't wait for the city to rebuild, because that would be doing the exact opposite of what everybody, is saying that we should do. And our 5-year goal was to have 25 single family homes. We were going to sell them and then 1031 into a multifamily. But because Whitney Sewell had planted, that seed, we just decided to go straight into multifamily. And that was about August of last year. And so the education completely changes, right? And because everything was still virtual, we were things are still virtual now, which is amazing, right? Because virtual is not going anywhere, but whole new meetups, whole new conferences, it was like, go, go, go. Like, we probably went to like 10 conferences last year just because we had no idea if they would go back to in person. And so we wanted to make sure that we like took in everything. And so there were a lot of little, I guess, bits of advice that we got along the way, but we knew that with multifamily, like, we needed a boots on the ground, right? Like, that is extremely important. Like, Michael can do acquisitions and broker relations, and I can do investor relations and marketing. But if we don't have anyone there with the broker to look at the asset, the brokers are not going to talk to us, And so we just put it out there on social media, like, hey, this is what we're getting into. Like, this is kind of what we're looking at, like, just over and over and over. And that included blog posts and just education. But one of Michael's old classmates from the Air Force Academy reached out and he's like, hey, like, I recently retired. I'm a wholesaler, like, and a flipper. We should talk because I want to get into multifamily. And right then it was like, it works, like putting yourself out there and letting the universe know that this is something that you want to do. Like, yes, the first maybe 10 times, we probably didn't get a lot of responses. But when people see your name out there over and over and over, like, it does work eventually, I promise. But with that, we decided to have our market be Tulsa, Oklahoma, because he's in Oklahoma City, but we didn't necessarily like love the numbers there. And once we started digging into Tulsa, it was like, okay, no, like, this is exactly where we want to be. And, through all of that, because there's just so much more that goes into it, right? Like, multifamily or just real estate investing in general is like a great balance, right? So like, through that process, we had to like talk to potential investors because we were going to do syndications. So, for a while we were doing 20 to 25 calls a week with potential investors, just because like, if you don't have money, then you really don't have a deal, right? Syndication is all about like the money that you can bring to like pay for that down payment. But then it was like that fine balance of putting out blog content and like still going to meetups. Like, so you have to put a lot into it. But something else that helped us, because we were consistent and like doing the things that we said we were going to do, somebody introduced us to an individual who was also investing in Tulsa. And through that like organic relationship, he ended up being our mentor. And that's really what like helped us propel like our growth, right? Because he knew the area, he could look over our underwriting. He could say like, oh, nope, that's definitely not a vendor that you should work with. I've already had horrible experience, like having all of those like little bits of information truly, truly helped. So it was just, I don't know, a great cultivation of everything all coming together. But to even go back to that 1% better every day and like that reset thinking, like that also went into play every day, right? Like, okay, I need to do 1% of this and I need to do 1% of that and I need to do this. But it's that compound effect that happens over and over and over, because that's even when it starts to become part of your routine, right? Like once you get used to the calls and you get used to writing the blog post, because they are all scary things at first because they're brand new, right? Like you can't just get on a call and you're like, I am awesome, I am great. Like somewhere deep down, you're still nervous, but just remember that like with practice, it all just becomes harmony.
Well, you can get on a phone call and say that, but somebody might call you out.
Yeah, right. That's very
true. Awesome. Yeah. So I want to kind of just rewind a little bit to go back to the beginning. When you first started looking at real estate, you guys were talking about doing the BRRRR method and you were looking at Cedar Rapids, Iowa, right? So what's an inland hurricane? Because I've never heard of that.
It's just like a really high wind.
It's just a really big storm.
Exactly. It's like a hurricane strength storm, but like in a landlocked
area.
State. Yeah.
Yeah. So you guys were, you had Mother Nature against you at the time. There was something you said earlier about, you put yourself out there and then the universe kind of saw what you were doing and brought you into the real estate world. Well, the universe was letting you know that burring wasn't for you and rentals wasn't for you because Mother Nature has spoken. So I can understand that, because all of the efforts and materials and everything were going to go to rebuilding those towns. So you probably were in a tough situation if you would have tried to continue on that journey. The other thing that you did that really sticks out to me is, this is what I'm going to call you guys, right? Because of what you did in such little time with how much education and content and everything that you absorbed. You guys are basically like sponges, right? When it came to your real estate sponges. So when it came to, the different meetups and the different conferences and everything that you were a part of, you went to them and not only did you go there, with the intent of making yourself 1% better every day, right? With that reset that you guys started, but you went there with the intent of taking action. And by taking the action, you went there and you learned about multifamily, and then you said, okay, this is the direction we're going to move in. And then you took action on it. So, and then you started looking in Tulsa, right? You found your mentor and a partner. So I want to talk about what are you guys doing in Tulsa right now? Actually, before I ask you that, because there's more to this, more to what you guys were doing. I just want to point this out to the listeners. You said you were making 20 to 25 calls a week. So that's that's around 100 calls a month that you're doing to find these deals. So just so everybody, when you're listening, it doesn't just come. It takes work. It takes effort, right? 100 calls a month at least, right? And then you guys built organic relationships, which is huge because now you have this. It's not just like an acquaintance or a connection. It's somebody that you guys really, you built a relationship with, and the person you partnered up with. Now to go back to what I was trying to get at before, let's talk about what you're doing in Tulsa. So, tell me about your multifamily deals that you have out there.
Yeah. So it's the deal we just closed on it back in February was an 88 unit, C plus, B minus asset. And it's a value add. So we're basically going in order to provide value. And we always look at, so one thing that Suzy and I are huge on is return on impact, right? Like you mentioned at the beginning, right? So we're looking at a different ROI. So instead of, we do look at return on investment for sure, but we're also looking at return on impact because that's big, right? And so we like to, when we're looking at properties, we're underwriting properties, we also take a step back and say, how is this impacting the residents? And how is this impacting the community? How is this going to impact our property management company? And so one of the things that we're doing about that property is adding washer and dryers to the units, right? Because when somebody is, has to gather their children, go to the laundromat, spend time there, a couple hours, whatever, and then coming back, whatever, giving them that time freedom back is huge, right? Because it's going to have a huge impact on that specific family, right?
So are you actually, sorry, but are you putting the washer and dryers in the units themselves, or are you going to have a separate, an attached laundromat that you're putting on the apartment complex?
That's a great question. So we're actually putting them directly in the units themselves.
Wow. So do they have washer and dryer hookups in there?
No, there's no hookups in there either. We did found
we're adding that.
We did find in the 2-bedroom units though, the 2 bedrooms had washer and dryer connections, but who lives in an apartment complex and buys their own washer and dryer, right? Nobody. Very few people, right? And so what we're actually doing is adding washer and dryers to the 2 bedrooms. But for the 1 bedrooms, we're actually adding the connections and the washer and dryers in those as well.
Wow. Yeah, that's definitely, you're taking a holistic approach to this, right? It's not just about what's in it for you guys as investors, right? When you're talking about this ROI, I really like that. It's a lot of times people paint these pictures of real estate investors as, being greedy and, they're just trying to invest to make, obviously, we're all trying to make a little more money in life, right? That's what we try to do. But you get this picture painted of, the guy who's just sitting there trying to get his mailbox money and just collect a check and doesn't really care, the typical slumlord picture that you see. But what you guys are doing is you're saying, hey, we've acquired this apartment and we want to make it a better quality of life, for you here, raise the value of the place. But we genuinely care about you, the resident, right? And that is, I think that's going to pay back huge dividends for you into the future. It might cost a lot right now, but depending on what you're doing with this property 5 to 7 years from now, this could really pay off huge during that time frame. So yeah, that's awesome.
Yeah, because like once we take care of like that basic need, right? Shelter, like we want to get to the point where the families in these communities can start to thrive instead of just like being survival mode, right? And like just adding that washer and dryer, like Michael said, we hope that like they can take those hours back and do things that are better for themselves and for their family, even if that is just decompressing, like that's even making yourself 1% better every day, because already in the world, people don't do self-care, right? It's just go, 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 go. So like even in that aspect, we just hope that it works, and even if it works for one person, then it's all worth it because it's all immeasurable, right? So we'll never know. We just have to know that when we put it out there, like at least the effort is there. And at least we know that it like can potentially help a lot of people. And we've gotten a lot of good feedback from it. Like our PM has told us like, people are excited for this. People want to move to the unit that they're in to one with a washer and dryer. So we know that the excitement is there.
Yeah. And just to add on that too, is like, we took a lot of time to like really determine who our property management company was going to be on the property. And we wanted to make sure that the property management company that we chose aligned with our values. And yeah, after the several months of operations now, we know that that's absolutely true. They care about the residents, right? Like we have weekly meetings with our PM, right? And they, most of the time, an asset manager would be focused on, doing unit turns and increasing the NOI, right? But we actually spend a lot of time like chatting about the residents, like, hey, well, this one guy is like an opera singer, right? And so I was like, that's cool. Like, and so just like little tidbits like that, right? And then we also had like, said the sad things too. We had a resident pass away. He had cancer and it was anyways, it was very sad. And so we know that we aligned ourselves with the correct PM because of these conversations we're having now, right? Like we knew when we found them and interviewed them to begin with that they were great, but now having them operate a property, and the people that they hire, right? So we have property management company, and then we have an on-site manager and on-site maintenance, and like the people that they hire also align with their values, right? And it's just great to see, and you can see that in the reviews on the property already. We had like I think close to 10 positive, like 5-star reviews already, just on the property from our the on-site manager.
Wow, and you purchased this property this past February 2021.
February 23rd. Yeah.
Wow. Well done. That's awesome.
Thank you.
Thank you.
So if you don't mind me asking, how much was it?
So the purchase price was $4.375 million.
Okay. And how much? So it's 88 units. How many are the 2-bedroom and how many are 1-bedroom?
So there are. Let's see if I can remember this. So there are 24 2-bedrooms. Okay. There are 48 1-bedrooms, and then there are. Whatever the remaining are, I don't remember off the top of my head, but the rest are like they're junior 1-bedrooms. So okay. They're kind of like converted studios. They have like their own bedroom though.
Are you going to be able to get the washer and dryer hookups in those and the washer and dryers too, or?
So unfortunately not in the smaller units, but for all the other units, we will have it.
And we have like an on-site facility also. So like the studios can still use that on-site laundry.
Okay.
Yeah. They still don't have to leave. We just wanted to like do a step up with the convenience because even during COVID, I'm pretty sure they shut it down. Like every other laundry or washer and dryer were available. And that in itself like sucks away so much time.
Right. Okay. So, you purchased, you said for 4.43, there was 24 2-bedrooms, 48, 1-bedrooms. And so you're putting washers and dryers in the 24, and then you're doing the same thing in the 48 plus the hookups. What's that going to cost you guys?
Yeah, it is a substantial amount of money, but the rent increases. So just to give it a rough idea, we can get side-by-side washer and dryers for about $700 for both of them.
Okay.
And then the stackables are actually a little bit more expensive. They're like 900 and some change.
Those are going to go in the 1 bedrooms?
Those are going to go in 1 bedrooms. Yeah.
Okay.
And then, installing the washer and dryer boxes, and, getting the plumbing in there, getting the correct plumbing in there. And then also the 220 volt as well. It's going to cost a little bit of money, but over the life of the deal, and the rent increases we're able to get. So we're only asking, so the market for the area is a $100 rent increase when you have washer and dryers in units. So adding the connections is $50, adding the washer and dryers is another $50 roughly. And so that's $100 rent. We're only asking for $80 rent increase. So we're just kind of undercutting as well. But overall, the numbers turn out to be, I think, like an 87% ROI over the life of the deal. So
that is superb. Yeah, that's fantastic. So, and again, you're building a better quality of life for these residents, which is absolutely amazing. And at first you said it was a C plus, maybe B minus. You're definitely upgrading the quality of the property too when you do stuff like that. So, really awesome stuff, guys. So, is that the only deal you have right now, or is there something else going on?
That's a great question. So we actually have another deal right now that we're in the midst of closing on. It's 100 units in the same area in Tulsa. So
all right, so you guys are going right now from 0 to 188. Normally, you see people go from 0 to 60. You guys are going from 0 to 188 in a year. It's awesome. So congrats.
Yeah, and that one's a purchase price of $6.5 million. So our total asset under management will be a little over 11 million. So we're excited for that.
Wow, fantastic.
But really the thing thanks. What drives it all though is once you figure out the impact you can make, it makes it all worth it, right? Waking up in the morning super early, going to bed a little bit later. Yes, there are days where we're tired, and that's totally understandable because everybody has that. But think of it this way, right? There are almost 8 billion people on this earth, which is a lot. And if everybody had an impact on somebody else that was even 1%, think about that compounding effect, right? That in itself is astronomical. It's huge. And so waking up every day knowing that I can do that and I can help my LPs, right? Because it's not just the families who live there, right? It's also the limited partners. It's also the brokers. It's also the SEC attorney. It's our property management company and all those employees, right? When we continue to get up and put the work in, we're also giving a little bit back to every single person who's involved. And I think that's forgotten about a lot too. How many people overall we're affecting. I mean, especially with the limited partners, right? Because they have families and they have children, and who knows, maybe they're trying to get their parents to retire earlier, it can go in so many directions that knowing that we can create that little bit of difference is what makes it all worth it. Because we strongly believe that you're born to make an impact. So if we can help people get to the point where they realize themselves that they have their life's work on this world too, then the time doesn't matter. It's all, I don't know, it's all just really beautiful, and it's really cool how it all comes together.
That reminds me of a saying I hear on another podcast that I listen to quite frequently. Rod Cleef says this all the time, where it's the two best days of your life are the day that you're born and then the day that you figure out the reason why. And, that's really a testament to what, the two of you are doing right now with it's not, you're making this so selfless. It's not just about the two of you and what you're trying to do with your investing adventure. It's what kind of impact am I going to make on other human beings' lives? So that is just, it's a step up from other people that I've interviewed, which is just really amazing. And, it's truly a humbling thing. So I just want to say, thank you for that. That's really awesome. I want to figure out though, what made you guys fixate on Tulsa? Because one of the questions I wanted to ask you is, especially being overseas, right, and investing back in the States, what made you decide to go in that area? I know you found your mentor that invests in the area, but why Tulsa?
Let's take a brief moment to hear from our show sponsors. What's going on, Average Joes? We know that managing one account or your entire family's portfolio can be stressful and time-consuming. From building and maintaining spreadsheets, calculating how many new shares and units you need to purchase with your contributions, finding the time to log into your brokerage and make those trades, and annually rebalancing each account. Well, my friends over at Passive came up with a tool that can help you manage all of this in a fraction of time without spreadsheets and manual calculations. Passive is a portfolio management tool that makes it easier for DIY investors to maintain a balanced portfolio and build a passive investment strategy at their online broker. It eliminates the need to use spreadsheets, saves you from having to log into your broker to place trades, and helps you stick to your portfolio's target allocation. Elite users can save even more time by using the one-click trades feature and having Passive execute the required trades on your behalf. All of this can be done from the Passive dashboard for all of your accounts. No more logging in to multiple brokerage accounts. Passive is not a robo-advisor. It won't tell you what you should invest in, so you'll need to decide that for yourself, either through self-education or alongside a financial advisor. To learn more about Passive or to sign up, check out our link below, www.averagejoefinances.com/passive. That's PASSIV with no E. Again, PASSIV with no E. Check them out. Hey, what's going on, everybody? It's Mike Cav from Average Joe Finances. Just want to talk to you today about Prep Agent. If you're interested in learning how to become a real estate agent and being able to pass the test on your first try, check out Prep Agent. Check out the link below in the show notes or in the video description. Let's get back to today's episode.
Yeah, that's a great question, Mike. So the biggest thing for us is like we wanted to, in speaking with our potential investors, everybody's kind of looking for cash flow, right? And so we knew that investing in an area that was stable, didn't have a huge market appreciation, some appreciation, but not a lot, right? Not like the Sunbelt states and things like that. So Tulsa is great because the prices are still lower. There's not a lot of competition, and we can go in there. We can still find deals. We can compete with other potential, investors and things like that. And so Tulsa, there's three main things that we look for when underwriting a deal, right? And then the first one is the property has to be cash flowing from day one. The second thing is that roughly, 40 to 50% of the return comes from cash flow. That makes sure that you're not banking on appreciation too much. And the third thing is that the property, we like properties that are stabilized so we can obtain long-term financing on it. And so what stabilized means is at least 90% occupied for 90 days. And so that just allows like long-term financing with low interest rates and things like that. The reason why we like that third piece is because we don't know what's in store for the economy, right? Like we don't know how much longer the federal government's going to prop up the corpse of the economy, what it is now, right? There's a tsunami of liquidity coming and, trillions of dollars of liquidity coming into the economy. We don't know what's going to happen, right? Like, the economists can't predict what's actually going to happen. We might be seeing inflation right now with the increase of lumber prices and the increase of labor costs and things like that. That could be the first signs of inflation, but that's at
least they're starting to come back down. So I'm going to knock on wood right now, as expensive as it is, and just hope that it keeps going that way.
So those three things we knew that we could find in Tulsa. And we didn't have to compete. So like if you try to buy property in Texas, as a syndicator, there are like 40 or 50 other people also putting in LOIs on properties, right? And then there's a best and final round, which is less like 10 people or whatever. And then you're competing, and then you're basically overpaying for properties when it comes down to it, right? You're either overpaying or you're giving returns that are like minimal for your investors, right? And so there's a lot of money that's coming in from, other sources that are just looking to hedge out inflation, right? So like they put it somewhere and they get a 4% return. Hey, that's better than 2% inflation, right? So, so there's a lot of money coming in that way. And so we like to provide, solid returns for our investors, and Tulsa really provides that opportunity for us.
Right on. That's great. Yeah. And who's to say that inflation is just going to be 2%, right? With the way things are going right now, who knows? We might even experience hyperinflation. I pray we don't, because that would be pretty awful. But who knows? I mean, we might need it for a correction, and with where we're going. I just don't want to see like the dollar turn into the yen. That would be pretty wild. So, wow. Okay. Yeah. So that's great. So that's a great answer for why you chose Tulsa as a market. Now, do the two of you plan to stick solely in Tulsa, or do you look at maybe in the future, maybe you'll branch out to some other states, or do you want to stick with Tulsa because you're comfortable there, or are we just like, hey, where the opportunity presents itself, we're going to go?
So, I mean, we're going to stay in Tulsa for now, right? It's like where our investors know that we're really I don't want to say comfortable, but like knowledgeable. And, right. We listen to like the city updates. Like I follow the city council members on LinkedIn. So I know when stuff is happening with the city. Like Michael has signed up for Google alerts for Tulsa news. So it's like we have that information coming in, like with everything, like everything has ebbs and flows. And so at one time, like if we're in a position where we do have to leave because it gets too popular or, the prices just don't work anymore. I mean, we are definitely open to moving, but right now, like Tulsa is working. So I don't want to go and try something else that's working and just add all of that added mess, and we've created really great relationships. And like our property manager is a huge reason to want to stay. Like she truly is part of the team. She's not just like somebody we hired out to deal with the families, right? Like she's very collaborative. She truly cares. And like, that's something that's hard to find. So like in order for us to even move, we would start actually with the property management piece first to see if we could even find like a great property manager because to us, like it's not worth moving if we cannot find somebody who like aligns with our goals and who will actually be collaborative. It's instead of just saying like, yes, that'll work. Yes, that'll work. Or no, we can raise rents higher. It's like, we don't need to raise rents higher. We want to know that like we're in this together and that we can like create a great space for these families.
Right on. Yeah, that's great answer. And yeah, maybe comfortable wasn't the right word, but yeah, I mean, you guys are in a spot where you really know the market, you know the area well, and you stay up to date and you stay educated on it, right? And signing up for those alerts and then following the city council members on LinkedIn and stuff, man, that is super like niche down into it and just super smart. So, yeah, awesome. So you guys are like newer to multifamily investing, but I know that you follow a lot of different podcasts and you've read a lot of different books and all the different meetups that you've gone to with other people that you've talked with as well. What are some of the biggest mistakes that you've seen other real estate investors make?
That's a great question. So not starting soon enough, right? No, I'm just kidding. So
not being methodical,
not taking action. Yeah. But I think the biggest mistake that we made is not hiring somebody to help us with our systems and things like that. Like, well, not systems, but like helping us do those little, $10 tasks, right? $10 an hour task. And it took us a while to hire our first VA. And then shortly after that, we hired another one, right? So that's been huge for us. And we're still working through like the growing pains of like letting go, right? Because as an entrepreneur, right, like you can do your business better than anybody else, right? And so, but for the first acquisition for us, like I wanted to understand every single little piece and write down and document every step of the way, right? And so now that I fully understand everything that goes into a syndication and what's required, then now I can hire and bring on partners to do those things for me because I know what I'm giving away, right? What the work is that I'm giving away. And if they have any questions, they can come back to me directly, right?
And even just to add to that, and this is obviously like just my opinion, other people do not have to follow it, but finding a property management company before you submitting LOIs, I think is extremely huge. Like I said, like you don't want to scramble to find a property manager and then it end up being horrible, right? Like they don't click with your residents. They like misunderstand your business plan. Then another thing is like submitting LOIs without ever seeing the property. Yes, I know we have to come to a place where like we have to get used to submitting LOIs, but like if the property is horrible and you go there and you don't end up liking it, like you didn't only waste your time, you wasted the broker's time, There's a lot of time and thought and energy that also goes into the brokers and into these sellers. So, I mean, those are just two things that I'm hearing that is happening more often that I just don't agree with. But I mean, even to go back like one step further, it's like that balance piece. So just remember that, yes, every night you will go to bed with stuff to do. Like it just doesn't end like when you're growing a business, right? But like finding that balance, like, yes, you have to go to meetups and you have to write like educational content or say it, whatever medium you choose, but you also have to be meeting people and you have to be underwriting. I mean, so it's like figuring it all out, like figuring out your strengths and your weaknesses, because if you really don't like doing something, that balance is going to get completely thrown off. So then it's really thinking about who do I need to bring to my team in order to be truly successful, which is kind of what Michael was saying, right? Like hiring a VA could be bringing on another team member, however you want to look at it, right? It's just really thinking about your time, because we all get into real estate investing to get more time back. But what ends up happening is people end up spending more time in it, and that's also not the point. So it's like thinking about that every single day. Like, how can I get more time back? What do I need to do? Who do I need to bring on?
Wow. Yeah. Those are some great golden nuggets right there. So right away, the question that I asked was, what mistakes do you see other real estate investors make? And right away, Michael, you said biggest mistake I made was absolutely love that. So thank you for that. And yeah, one of the things I wrote down here on my notes is like, don't be afraid to outsource when you need to. Right. And you guys, you realize that was one of the things that, it was really hard for you to give up, but when you did it, it made life a lot easier. As a matter of fact, before we started recording, I was talking to you about that too, with some of the things that I've been doing with just the podcast itself and being able to outsource some things and just freeing up some time. Man, it really makes a difference.
Absolutely.
And then the other thing that you said too, Suzy, is balance. Balance is huge. And I think one of the key things that the both of you really talked about a lot is probably the most important thing is building that team, right? That great team that you guys have that you can rely on, that you can trust to get the job done, right? Because like you said, Michael, I mean, as an entrepreneur, you're going to run your business better than anybody else because it's your business. You know what you want, you know what you want to do. And a lot of times it really is difficult to give up the reins and hand some of those duties off to someone else. And, you're in the military still, so you know what it's like when we have to delegate certain things down too. Even that gets kind of tough. It's kind of a mindset shift that you need to really focus on. It's when I talk to a lot of people in this space, a lot of times, a lot of big problems can be solved by shifting your mindset, shifting your way of thinking. And I think the two of you have absolutely done that, and you're crushing it with that. So that's really awesome. Okay, so I've got some other questions I want to ask you. I've gone completely away from the questions that I wrote down that I wanted to ask, which is perfectly fine because this conversation is flowing great. I absolutely love it. Now, going back to what you guys are doing when it comes to, when you're finding the deals and the properties that you want to buy. So, you got the 88 unit that you closed on, you have the 100 unit under contract now. When you started looking at these properties, what are some of the strategies that you implemented to mitigate risk when you were under contract?
I mean, we came in with like a whole sheet of things that we wanted like pictures of and things to check. And that like list came from looking at like other operators that are like very high up in there, like what they look for, because there really is free education everywhere, right? So when I pick like my top 10 syndicators that I follow, if half of them have like a due diligence checklist, I'm like, cool, what is the common theme on this due diligence checklist? And that's just like how we made our list, it's like, okay, these are all the things you need to look at because we're brand new at this too, right? It's not like we all went in being like, oh, we know exactly what to do. Like we all have blind spots. So it's remembering that you have blind spots, but knowing that there are other people out there who have already done it, who are sharing this information for free. So that's what it was. And then it was taking a lot of photos to make it seem like we were there, right? Took a picture of the unit number and then took a picture of like what the inside looked like, what the outside looked like, some things that you might not think about, like, oh, there's like a puddle of water. Is it because the sidewalk's cracked? Is it because the gutter on the side of the building is wrong? Like thinking of even those different issues of how we can mitigate that. But it was really going in and like focusing on it, right? Like having that mindset of once I step foot onto this property, I need to be very like have my wide lens on, I guess you could say, to be able to notice every single thing, which is a mindset shift, but like, it's not an in and out process. It really is like, okay, I need to go in to make sure that this is something that I want to commit to. Cause it is, depending on your business plan, 3, 5, 7, or 10 years or longer, or shorter, I guess. But for some, that could be a really long time. So you don't want to go in and then like, once you close, have it be like, surprise, this is something I could have seen, but I missed it.
Add to that as well, Mike. How we mitigate risk going forward is we took the time, we took like several weekends, and we went through the 700 plus emails that it took to close on this property, right? Because we were the lead sponsors on that, meaning that we were handling the lending, we were handling all the other vendors and everything like that. Like, yes, we had people who had experience. We had my mentor who could like say, open up his Rolodex and say, here's some numbers you can call for insurance or whatever, right? So that was awesome. But we went through all the 700 plus emails. I went email to email and wrote down everything that we did from pre-LOI all the way through closing. And I put it in like this giant list, right? And now we take that list and we dump it into Asana, which is a project management software. And in Asana, then now for this current acquisition, we have everything in there in Asana. We know exactly what we need to do step by step. Yes, things do change, right? It's a living document because it depends on your lender that you have, whether it's agency debt or just like local bank, things like that. But now I can assign that to other partners on our team. And I can say, we need this done by this date, this done by this date. And I can go in there and see people can comment, drop files and stuff like that. So it's awesome. And that's how we're mitigating risk now. And we wanted to set up the systems and processes from overseas now and show our investors and show our partners that and other syndicators that, hey, we can do this no matter where we are in the world, right? Because our end goal is when I retire in the military is to not have a home base, right? To not live in one spot. We want to live wherever we want to, like whether that's 3 months in Thailand or 6 months in Australia or 3 months in New Zealand, right? Like, or in Hawaii, right? Like we can kind of live wherever we want and still be active. If we want to be active, stay active and show our investors that we can continue to do that, right? And we're showing them that now, like 4,000 miles away from our properties. What's the difference between 4,000 and 8,000 miles, right? So
just a couple hours of a time zone difference, really, because I mean you're still able to do everything that you're doing right now. That's fantastic. And I've had somebody else on the show too who is investing from overseas. He was investing out of Japan, and it's the same thing. Yeah, Daniel. Daniel Mills. Yeah. So it's really awesome when you see like that. You don't look at this distance and the time zone difference as a obstacle. You look at it as an opportunity, right? So that's absolutely amazing. And then you realize that if you can do it from there, you can do it from anywhere. So if you guys are ever out here in Hawaii, definitely hit me up. We'll go grab a bite to eat or something and coffee or whatever. And yeah, definitely.
For sure.
That's really awesome, guys. And your risk mitigation, the way you built your due diligence list is just, you're looking at what everybody else is doing and you're like, hey, if it's not broke, don't you don't need to fix it. Right. So, and you're able to build your own list based off of what, other really successful syndicators are doing. So yeah, really great work. Okay. I want to move on to something else real quick about I want to ask you if there's anything else that you guys invest in. So is there any other asset classes besides multifamily real estate that you guys invest in right now?
Yeah. So one thing that we've actually done, which is actually pretty cool, it's like another business that we started with some friends, is
Dogecoin.
No, despite everybody trying to convince me to do that, I've been able to avoid it so far. But we'll see. Maybe I'll dump $100 into it or something. But one thing that we've done from over here in England is like Defenders. Land Rover Defenders are like a huge commodity in the United States, right? And there are of abundance here in the UK. That being said, they are extremely inexpensive here in the UK. Meaning that we can get one for $15,000 when they go and they sell in the US for close to 35 or 40,000, which is huge. And so when we were back in the States, one of my friends owns a wine import company, And then my other friend is a Land Rover enthusiast. And so we invest in that. And like now we have the systems and processes in place. We got like a dealer's license and things like that in the works. And so we now take vehicles here, import them into the United States, and basically flipping Land Rovers, Defenders.
Wow.
So,
do you get them like the steering and everything converted over?
No, people actually love the right hand drives.
Wow.
Yeah. And so that's like why, they're so excited about getting them, because they want to keep them that way.
Yeah.
Wow. That's really cool. That is neat. That is definitely taking advantage of where you're at right now for school. That's awesome. The wine too. You're doing wine as well.
Oh no. So he owns a wine import company. Sorry.
Okay.
I didn't explain that very well, but he owns a wine import company. So he knows everything that he needs to know about like importing objects or goods to the United States. And so he has all the connections that we need, to get everything shipped correctly, like the Defenders shipped and then also delivered properly. So he knew all of the logistics part from going from the UK to the US. And that's why he's a key member of the team.
Right on. So did you already start that?
We did. Yeah. Mm-hmm. And we have
congratulations.
There's one just got to the US yesterday and a couple more on the way. So we actually found a guy here where we don't actually have to do anything. And he just sends us pictures, videos of it running and things like that, driving around, and then like, good to go.
Yeah.
And he delivers
vehicles.
Yeah. He delivers them to the port and everything. We don't do anything. It is
very passive.
Maybe a couple hours, and like these, they're sold even before they get on US soil.
Oh my goodness. That's amazing. Yeah. That's cool. That's cool. Yeah. So not only investing in real estate, you've invested in another small business that's looks like it's gonna take off. Are you going to try to continue doing that after you get back stateside, or is that going to be the end of the line when you finish school?
Well, because of the connection that we've built actually with the dealer over here, I'm pretty sure it'll be able to continue. But if our lifeline were to end with him, it might change a bit. So we'll just see how it all goes.
Yeah. Right on. Yeah, that is super cool. Well done. Okay, so that kind of answers that question. So what about anything else? Like any paper assets? Do you guys have any stocks or anything like that?
I have some stocks still, but we sold most of it actually to invest in real estate.
Right on.
We were more, looking at the stock market after what happened in March of last year. And that's doing great now, but who knows what's going to happen with the tsunami liquidity coming on the market, like I mentioned earlier. And so it's just too risky for us. Like we'd rather invest in assets that we can control, like hard assets, like real estate.
What about being in the military? Do you do TSP at all, or?
I have some in the TSP. Mm-hmm.
Okay. All right. So a little bit there. Okay. Right on. Yeah. So yeah, you guys are sitting pretty well. You've got a good plan set up. So really job well done. So I've got two more questions I want to ask you. And this is like the real, I guess the last real question. And that is, are there any last tips or tricks that you would recommend to somebody who is just getting started? And let's just say that this somebody who's just getting started wants to start in multifamily. They don't want to do the single family thing. They don't want to burr or buy 25 single family rentals to 1031 them into a multifamily. They want to get right into multifamily. What would you recommend to them?
So the biggest thing for anybody who's looking to get into multifamily, the lifeblood of multifamily investing is networking. So find meetup events. So go to meetup.com. A lot of them are virtual still. And a lot of them will stay virtual because they are born during COVID, right? And so find as many as you can and attend as many as you can, right? If you're serious about this, show up to as many as you can every single week. Get to know every single person. You'll start seeing more of these people showing up more and more, and then you can find partners that way, things like that. However, one thing is, don't just jump into a partnership. Like make sure you date them a little bit, right? Because when you take down a deal, you're taking it down for 5 to 7 years, right? And so you're basically married to that person for 5 to 7 years. So make sure you court them, date them a little bit, and make sure that they're the right fit before just jumping in the sack with them.
Right on. Good analogy there. It's you got to make sure you build that relationship up. We're not. This isn't Tinder. Real estate Tinder. Okay. This is Match.com real estate. Okay. We're
eHarmony, even slower, right?
Yeah, eHarmony. There you go. Those commercials always made me feel like that those relationships are going to last. Awesome. Okay, so I understand that the two of you are launching a podcast soon. As a matter of fact, probably by the time this airs, your podcast will be live. So if you could tell me, what's your podcast? What's it going to be about? What's the name? Like, share that with our listeners, because I would love for them to show you guys some love when you get this thing started.
Oh, thank you so much. So the podcast name is The Adventures of a Real Estate Investor. And, we chose that name just because it really embodies like who we are, and really everything in life is an adventure. So we love to just see it that way. But what we talk about is that we interview industry experts who we see as making a huge impact, like within their life and their community. So we've had a variety of speakers so far where, military members who get to leave the military because they're leveraging real estate. And what that means is that their children can go to the same school, like their spouse can finally get the job that they've been wanting after the 20 years of constantly moving. One individual, she is going to Belize and building orphanages and bringing Christmas to them almost every year. And she actually has brought one orphan back for the summer. Yeah. And that changed her life. Beautiful. Right? It, all of it blows my mind. A lot of people are already teaching financial literacy to their children so that they understand, because it's not taught in schools. So we as parents or people need to break it down. And so it's super cool. Another woman that I truly adore, her whole thing is the investing trifecta. So that's people, planet, and profits, and how everything can all go together. So we wanted to start it because we want people to know that everyone can make an impact. And I know I said that at the beginning, but it's truly true. And once you get the ideas from others, because like I said, we all have blind spots. It's wow, that's something I actually truly believe in. I just didn't know it was possible for me to do it. But it's amazing how we're all leveraging real estate to make those impacts.
Wow. Yeah. I love it. And some of the people that you're talking about that you already interviewed, I am super excited to listen to that and absorb some of that content when it comes out. So right on. So guys, for my listeners, make sure you check out that podcast when it comes out. That's going to be super awesome. But now back to the two of you, so we got the podcast coming out, but what about, everything else that you guys are doing? What if somebody wants to find out more information about Michael or Suzy? Where can they find this information? Do you have a website? Do you have social medias, profiles you could share with us?
Yeah. So what people can do if they're interested in making an impact in real estate, we really like to connect with those people and get to know them a little bit better. And so they can find us at adventurousrei.com. That's our website. And you can send us a message through there. You can also find us on LinkedIn, Michael Barnhart, Suzy Sevier. And drop a little note in there, hey, we listened to Mike's podcast. This is how we love to interview, and drop that in a little note when you connect with us on LinkedIn. Additionally, that checklist that I had mentioned earlier, actually, put that together in a PDF, so people can have access to that as well. It's like the checklist from pre-LOI all the way to closing. If you want a copy of that, you can go to adventurousrei.com/checklist, and you can download that there as well.
Right on. All right, so there you have it, everybody. So. I'll make sure I have all those links in the show notes. And like I said, by the time this episode airs, I think your podcast will already be live. So I'll make sure I have a link to your podcast as well. All right. Awesome. So, hey, Suzy, Michael, thank you so much. Absolute pleasure having you guys on the show today. Thank you so much for taking some time to talk with me.
Yeah, thank you, Mike. It was such a pleasure, and really enjoyed the conversation, and looking that we were able to provide value to your listeners.
Yeah, thank you so
100%
much.
did. Absolutely. All right. I'm out of here. You guys have a great night. Well, great morning over there in the UK. And I'm probably going to go to bed here in a couple minutes. All right. You guys have a good night.
You
Thanks,
too.
Mike.